Hello, this is Qyalms visiting again from the Grim Wayside, and today we're continuing our series of Inscape boxes. This particular box is DaVinci's Marvel. DaVinci's Marvel was the fourth box that came out after Pharaoh's Secret, Caesar's Riches, and Maya's Myths, and it came out before Wild West Riddles and the most recent Stonehenge's Legacy. I purchased this from the Kickstarter as an add-on with the Stonehenge's Legacy box. So I have complicated feelings about Inscape boxes in general. I do support small businesses. I think that the escape puzzle box uh, genre can only be enriched by having more companies in the sphere. But man, Inscape boxes, they can be really frustrating for me. So the DaVinci's Marvels box, it's considered a 4 out of 5 difficulty rating, and a 60 to 120-minute box. And I don't know how I think it's more frustrating than it is fun. This box has what you might consider like the more traditional idea of puzzles. So rather than logic puzzles where you're trying to figure out codes and things, this one you're literally trying to put puzzles onto the outside of the box. Puzzles in the traditional sense of like a jigsaw puzzle or a tanagram puzzle. The box comes with this white extra box. This has 4 panels of puzzle pieces in it that you'll insert into the larger box. It came with a little piece of sandpaper in case your little puzzle pieces didn't fit that great. And then it comes with this loose tool in the box. So in terms of having these extra pieces that are outside of the box, it's not my preference for a puzzle box. I think part of the elegance of an escape room box or a puzzle box like these is that you unlock tools or you unlock puzzle pieces. Inscape later did this when they did Maya's Myths, or I guess Miles Myths was the one previous to this. The puzzle was actually inside the box, and you had to open the box in order to get those puzzle pieces out. In this one, they just added it as an extra box inside of the main box. And the tool you don't unlock from the box. It's just loose in here, and that's kind of inelegant to me. It's not my preference. I prefer to unlock my tools. So the box itself is a series of sort of more traditional puzzles that are on the outside of the box. But the top of the box is this series of 3 dials, and they fall on, and then there's an additional several rows that are not movable dials, but are actually printed directly onto the box itself. I would say the aesthetic of this box without the colors is my preferred aesthetic. Some of the later boxes, like Stonehenge's Legacy, are colored boxes. I do prefer this older style box where things are directly laser cut or laser engraved onto the box. On the bottom of the box is the door that you're going to open. This isn't a puzzle in itself. You're just going to be unlocking the 2 sides of this bar in order to remove this puzzle and reveal the space that's inside. So the actual puzzles, there is this puzzle labeled with this fancy A. It uses square and rectangular pieces to go into this shape. On this side, there's this U shape. This is sort of a tanagram style puzzle that has some unusually shaped pieces. There is this puzzle that has this like sideways or backwards E or an H, whatever you want to call this oddly shaped symbol up here. It uses circular or semicircular pieces. And then there's the D side, which is by far the most frustrating of all of these sides of the puzzles. But let's go ahead and start. Oh, and on the square puzzle side, you'll see that there are these pieces that pop out. They have the letters on them for each side. This is A, D, U. This one isn't popping out. You use the tool to push it through. There we go. So you can see how you can use the tool in the back of the box to push these out to the correct distance on this left-hand side of the box, or my left-hand side of the box. The tool has 4 different lengths of sides. Each one has a number on it. There's a 51, a 71, a 31, and an 11. So this piece doesn't really come into play until the end of the box. But we'll go ahead and start with the side that calls itself A. And to do that, we'll go ahead and open up the white box, which has the 4 separate cards of puzzle pieces that you pop out. So this one is labeled for side D. This is the tanagram side, which is that U-shaped one. This is for the E-shaped one that has light, and then this is for the A side. So I have solved all these already. The puzzles are simply just finding the correct place to put the pieces. And you can do that a variety of ways. I did kind of narrow it down. There are some pieces that, because of how close they are to the edge, you're never going to be able to see them. So they do appear twice in most of these. But, you know, for example, I knew that there aren't any pieces where you can possibly get this particular triangle with the moon shape on it, for example. And the other thing I noticed is this triangle with like a line coming out of it. So you're trying to reveal through these holes, and there are more holes than there are symbols that they go over. But you're trying to reveal 3 symbols through these little holes. This triangle with the line doesn't actually appear anywhere on here. So you can immediately eliminate both 11 as an answer and 3 as an answer, for example. You can't actually get these because this symbol doesn't exist in the main part of the puzzle here. And so some of these you can just realize that you're not going to be able to get a hole this close to the corner, for example. So this is never going to be your answer. This one could be your answer. So since it does appear in 2 places, but you'll know that you'll never get that one at least. So there's sort of a sense of there is some elimination that you can do to try and figure out what numbers you won't be getting. But for the most part, then it just comes down to trial and error trying to work out where the pieces actually go. So let me go ahead and solve this pretty quickly. These 2 are the same size. The rest of the pieces are not the same size. They vary a little bit in width. But I think you go here. And I think you're up here. And you go there. And I think you are the narrower one. And then I think you are the thinner one at the wider one. Yeah. Okay, so you can see, and there's a little bit of, they're not perfectly centered inside the holes, but they're close enough. So you'll see that these 4 holes don't have actually any symbols in them, but we do have this line with the squiggles. So that gives us, it's either going to be the 11 or the 12. Then we can see the pyramid with the moon on it, which means that it's going to be the 12. And then this suggestive looking symbol right here. So the answer for this particular side is going to be 12. And so it's really just a matter of the time it takes is the time it takes to try and get all the pieces in. I was trying to line up like all of the pieces on this side and see if I could, you know, use that as a place to start. But it is just a puzzle that you just have to keep kind of moving around to trying. There's not as much logic to how you can solve this puzzle as there is for, say, the circle puzzle that comes up later. Because you can kind of work out that those circles need to end up in certain places on the edge of the puzzle in order for the puzzle to work out. So go ahead and put these away very quickly. So the answer to the A side is 12. So going on to this tanagram side, this puzzle comes in two different colors, and I wasn't clear at first whether that indicated that these were used for two different sides of the puzzles, but they are for the same side. And one thing you can kind of notice from these shapes is they do look a lot like the shapes when you're using a digital clock, that long elongated hexagon shape, that sort of, Zelda rupee shape, looks like how you would have a digital number display, for example, if you were doing the number was, 5 or 9. So that indicated to me, especially since we know we're looking for some kind of numbers, and this side doesn't have numbers on it at all, that we were looking for maybe what would look like a digital number display. So let me just and so at the same time, then knowing that you're going to be using these puzzle pieces together, you can kind of find the pieces that are going to fit this particular angle. So let's go ahead and together. So I knew that this particular shape was going to end up here, and the same with this one. I knew that this weird shape was going to have to end up touching these two pieces because that's the only place where these weird angles make sense and fit. And if you notice that once you put in these two pieces with this triangle piece here, it gives you this um, perfect little digital piece shape right there. And then see. And so this one, once I got started with this group of pieces right here, went very quickly. Um, there we go. And so the number that this side gives us is 15. It would have been nice if this piece weren't the way it was, because it's when I was putting together the puzzle, I was expecting to get, I was expecting this number 1 to be a single piece. It's again kind of misleading when you put this piece in here to break up a number. I I can't understand the decision to do that other than it gives you kind of a red herring. And Inscape puzzles, for me, are kind of infamous for having these sort of red herrings that don't really go anywhere or that end up being a little confusing. So I don't know why they couldn't have just made this a single piece so that it was clearly a 1, but the answer to this particular side is 15. Okay, so this side is very similar to the side with the squared and squared off and rectangular pieces. But this one, of course, is with circular pieces. This puzzle I found to be a little bit easier because it made sense to me that certain pieces of the puzzle needed to stop flush with the lines that ended there. And again, there's certain pieces, puzzle or certain numbers, of course, that you're not going to be able to get. This one's much too close to the edge, so this isn't going to be the answer to your problem right here. The same thing with this one over here. So since both of these are far too close to the edge to actually be chosen, these are not the answers to your puzzle, for example. So you can immediately eliminate these two little eyeglass shaped pieces, for example. So like 14 is not going to be your answer. Neither is 8. So let me just, so you, yeah. So for example, I knew that this piece, in order for these lines to make sense, that it needed to end up in one of these holes where, for example, this shape wasn't going to make any sense for the piece to be there. But since this fit perfectly in here, and that's those curves ended up where the break was with the outside outline of the puzzle, that's where that puzzle piece made sense to go, for example. Okay, so that is the solution to this backwards E-shaped puzzle, or H, whatever you want to call this particular symbol. And so you can see there's a V in this hole and mountains in this hole, and then a sideways S in this hole, which makes the answer to this puzzle 16. So it's as simple as that one. Like I said, this one was not as annoyingly difficult as the square rectangular puzzle was. And then the final puzzle I found so frustrating. So I feel like part of solving a puzzle is that, in addition to, I feel like you should have to unlock your tools, um, your puzzle should only give you an answer in one way. And unfortunately, with this puzzle, there's so much variation to it that I ended up having 4 different solutions to this puzzle, each one giving me different numbers. The only thing that I was sure of when I started was that because of the angle of this corner and the way that this largest piece neatly covered everything in this corner, the only thing I was really certain of was that this large piece belonged up here. But there's enough give and take in this puzzle where the gears are covering up the numbers that you could come up with several different possible answers and just not quite cover up all the numbers. And you'll see when I finish this puzzle that you can still see other numbers even with the official solution. Okay. There we go. And as you can see, it's still a pretty weird, wonky, tight fit here. But this is their official solution. Now, the thing is, like, you can almost see that there's a 12 in the corner here. There's a 1 that's still visible right here, but the answer that they are looking for is a 10. And even then, you can see how awkwardly difficult these fit in here. But this is the solution that they suggest, the proper placement that they suggest on their own website. This is the answer to the puzzle, even though the pieces don't quite fit quite right. And there are other ways that you can arrange this puzzle for all of the pieces to fit and reveal different numbers. I was quite often getting 55 or 5, and I got the 45 that you see right here. Like, all of these numbers were numbers that could have been the answer, except that 45 doesn't fit into the pattern that you see on the top of the box. And I'll get to that in just a second. But the answer to this side is 10 officially. So we now have the numbers, and they were 16, 15, 10, and 12, I believe was correct. So when I looked at the tool, there was only one side that had all 4 of those numbers on it, and that side was the one that says 51. And at that point, I assumed that, I needed to have some numbers to put into the top dial here, right? Like, the top dial must unlock something, or there must be some mechanism um, that I needed in order to figure out what the numbers were. But I honestly, I cannot figure, and I still to this day, having even looked at their own hints website, I don't understand what this dial on top is for. If you add up the numbers, they are 53, not 51. So, but the website's own suggestion is that you line up these numbers so that all the numbers line up and add to 51. I just don't understand what the logic is. And once we open up the puzzle, I'm going to use the stick to push out these little bars to the correct lengths. Once you use that, it automatically unlocks the box, and you'll see that there's no mechanism actually attached to this set of dials up here. As far as I can tell, I don't understand the logic that we're supposed to be using to get to 51, because the logic of knowing that we have those 4 numbers is the logic that gets you to the correct side of the tool. And it doesn't actually have any purpose as far as I can tell, which is kind of frustrating. It feels, if it's worse than a red herring, right? Because, like, this is clearly something that's supposed to be part of solving the puzzle and just somehow is not. So let me just make sure everybody's pushed in here. So this one should be 10. And you can see it come out on this side. That's the lowest side. This one should be 16. This one, I believe, is the 15. And then this one is 12, I think, is the way that goes. Let me just check my notes here for what I wrote down. Yeah. So A is 12. So at those distances, the bottom just falls out. Let me see if I can turn around this without thing. So yeah, and now with these pieces off, you can definitely see inside the box it's a very large hole. So if you want to put a very large gift in here, you certainly can. It has the coin in it that all Inscape puzzles have, and then it has the little scan QR code that all these Inscape puzzles have. But you can see inside the box that there is no mechanism for that dial to operate anything. It's simply just here to give you the number 51, but I'm not sure why you make that assumption. So if anybody understands that logic better than I do, please let me know in the description down below. But otherwise, yeah, you're able to solve the puzzle without doing anything with this top dial on top. I wish there were a clever way to have unlocked the tool. Here's the tool. The little coin that comes in this box, it's got the DaVinci's Marvel symbol on it. This is the Inscape logo itself. And then on the other side, these are usually symbols that represent future boxes or boxes that have already come out, depending on what order you're doing the boxes in. This appears to be some kind of, it looks almost like a little, like an Ouroboros, like a snake eating its tail. There's like this little Celtic knot. And there is a yin yang symbol, and then like a lotus blossom. I think None of the puzzles that have come out yet have this sort of Eastern or Asian influence, so I think this is probably a future box. I don't know if maybe this has to do with the Stonehenge Legacy box that came out, and so I guess in the future we can expect to see some kind of Asian-inspired box. Um, but the DaVinci's box, it right now is selling for $50. If you like these kind of puzzles, then maybe this is the box for you. This is not the kind of puzzle I like to solve. I like to solve more like logic puzzles, rather than, and I love regular jigsaw puzzles, but I like having, um, I like the pictures. I'm not the kind of person who puts together a pure white puzzle. I prefer a puzzle that has like a really complicated picture so that you can find all sorts of things in the pictures and then each piece has only one place it can go. So it's kind of your mileage may vary on what kind of puzzles you like to solve, but there are certainly parts of this puzzle that I personally found frustrating and not very rewarding. This gear puzzle in particular, since it didn't seem to fit that well and the answer didn't seem to be that clear. And since there were just loose pieces in the box, this is not the puzzle for me personally. At $50, I would prefer to buy some other puzzle, like a Puzzle Potato puzzle box, or certainly ID Ventures or Adventures puzzle boxes are great. I really love them at that price. So your mileage may vary depending on what kind of puzzle you enjoy putting together. This one just wasn't for me. Thank you for joining me for another Puzzle Box Solve and Review. If you're interested in more Puzzle Box content, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to be notified of our future videos. Take a look at the description below to see a complete list of my Puzzle Box collection, and if you're interested in our other doll unboxing videos, check out our channel and playlists. Comment with your requests and your thoughts. Your support keeps us motivated. Hope you enjoyed the video.